The Underground, Ideas into Action presents an Underground Chat, where we bring the underground conversation to you. Today's topic, a CEO gets real with COVID-19, with Keith Sultemeier, President and CEO of Kinecta Federal Credit Union.
Hi there. I'm Sue Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Stankovic Associates and the founder of the Underground Community. We are consultants and activists seeking to have authentic conversations with thought leaders that turn ideas into action. Today, I'm excited about our Underground Chat with Keith Sultemeier, CEO of Kinecta Federal Credit Union and an active leader on many CUSO and trade association boards. It's a privilege to work with Keith and the Kinecta board, both professionally and through our industry volunteer work. During a recent conversation, Keith shared how the Kinecta Credit Union family always comes together for community members, and this commitment was accelerated and activated their response to the COVID pandemic. They were ready and immediately making an impact.
Well, hey, this is what we're doing with this, is that, the Underground, as you know, you've attended a couple, and I really appreciate you being part of it. And so what we're doing is we've created these Underground Chats where they're just quick, conversations with people. And sure. I was very impressed with that last board session when you talked about how quickly you guys responded. And frankly, it was interesting to me that not very many credit unions that I work with, and as you know, I've got quite a range, had their pandemic part of their disaster recovery all set to go. So, why don't you start, if you will, and share with us a little bit about how that came about? How did you guys have your plan in place, and how did you activate so quickly?
Yeah, we got very fortunate to find and hire a very good DR person about 6 years ago who set about creating a comprehensive DR plan. And it just so happened that a pandemic plan was part of that package, among other things in California, natural disaster being one. And so we had actually done a tabletop exercise on the pandemic plan not too long ago, which was probably just fortunate timing. And so we were able to break that out and go through it early on. Now, what we found going through this is the plan, didn't include quite a few things, right? We learned quite a bit, but at least it gave us a framework for getting started. We knew who needed to be in the room, how we were going to communicate, and that was, that was important. We're fortunate to have this individual in our company, and he brought us, up to speed. Sometimes kicking and screaming, but he was very detailed and very follow through, and he got it all done for us. So we certainly appreciate it now.
So how big are you guys, and how many branches, and how many people did all this impact?
Yeah, we're just under $5 billion in assets, and we've got 24 branches, about 700 employees, and within 3 days, we had 95% of our administrative staff working from home, and then our branches stayed open, but with reduced staff and reduced members in the lobbies. And the reason we did that is because we don't, in the market we're in, there are no drive-throughs. I mean, it's just the real estate's so expensive. It's just, there's no choice. So none of the institutions around here have drive-throughs. So we said, look, we've got to have a means to continue serving members in person, because we have quite a few that's their preferred channel. And surprisingly, at least to me, the members have been super understanding about it. At least initially, they were very pleased and very thankful that we stayed open. That's starting to wear thin a little bit, honestly, as we only let 2 in at a time, and the waits can be as long as an hour. But we did find an app that lets us queue them. So they
Oh,
come up, there's an employee outside with an iPad, they give them their cell phone number, it puts them in a queue, and when it's their turn, they go back to their cars to wait, or they can go run an errand or do whatever they need to do. They get a text when it's their turn, and then they come into the lobby. So that's helped a bit. The state, like many, our state, California, is moving a little probably slower than most, but there's some indication that they're going to start loosening up a bit. And we're going to phase our branch folks back in as we go. But in the meantime, when they're not in the branch, they're at home in the call center queue. So we've managed to, even though we've seen a pretty big increase in the number of calls, we've managed to maintain service levels there. And we got, again, a little lucky in being able to deploy our folks from home so quickly and get them up and running. In that we had just replaced all of our PCs, our desktops, and for Windows 10 upgrades, and the desktops actually had a Wi-Fi capability.
oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
so we were fortunate there, and we got everybody set up with soft phone and back online and serving members, or kind of back to their tasks. And
You know what I
so
find
far it's worked.
interesting? Yeah, I find interesting that I've seen different levels, if you will, folks that have responded quickly, but because they weren't really prepared, they were waiting on laptops and making sure that they got all the equipment for people to go virtual. And that's what fascinated me about yours, a little bit of luck, but quite a bit of planning for you to be able to manage all the people. And you did it with your executive team as well as all team members. So then you turned around, and frankly, you had quite an impact on members. And I was fascinated because the PPE loans and some of the things that were going on during that time are still in the queue for some of the credit unions that I'm dealing with, and have been turned off with others. So you guys responded right away in that area as well.
Yeah, we were already an SBA lender, and so we were ready to go. Of course, we had the same issues that most did with SBA systems, which was very frustrating. A lot of duplication of work with systems crashing. We stuck at it. We got some loans in that first round before it ran out. Not as many as we'd like, and we left a bunch in the queue. We decided we were going to go ahead and keep working the applications even though the funds were out, because we figured, and it turned out to be correct, that there would be an additional round of funding. So when they opened up the second round, we already had worked through and approved applications and were ready to get them submitted. So it's gone much quicker. We're also able to redeploy staff from other areas to work SBA or the PPP loans, because our consumer lending, at least the auto lending piece, has gone way down. It's hard to make car loans when it's illegal to sell a car at a dealership in California. But those folks we redeployed over there, and the rest of our team, even accounting, they've all said, "Hey, I've got some bandwidth." They chipped in, either helping organize packages or calling members to inform them kind of where they are in the process. It's worked out really well. One of the things that has turned out good for us is we made a decision early on that we were going to serve anyone in the community, regardless of prior relationship, and let that be known. Word got out. We ended up with about 2,500 applications, and quite a few of those, probably more than half, were from non-member, non-related folks. And I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten and letters and from those non-members really thanking us and pointing out the differences between their PFI and us, and the way that we handled it and the way that we served them. And we've probably opened more new retail accounts out of that than we would have with our traditional business members. So
Was that kind
paid some dividends.
Was that a controversial discussion with the team in terms of when you started that, or were you guys just all in? Because I know how all in you are with the community, you know?
Yeah, no, there was really no dissension and very little discussion. It was like, yeah, of course, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Now we did kind of stipulate that we were going to limit it to our footprint, so we weren't going to take the applications from outside of kind of our service areas unless they were from existing members. Just because we had so many in the communities we served that we didn't think we'd be able to get through them all.
Well, your footprint is what, from Ventura County to Orange County?
Yeah, roughly Santa Barbara to just north of San Diego.
Okay, and, wow. So that's a pretty large footprint. Did that carry over to small businesses? What are you seeing there? Are you seeing them having more awareness of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you know, it's a fairly tight-knit community, especially in a lot of cities, the beach cities here in Southern California. And so kind of word gets around, hey, I was able to apply, or hey, I got, funded at Kinecta. And so we get a lot of those, so-and-so from such and such business referred me to you guys. And we've managed to serve quite a few more folks that way. Just, personal connections. My Rotary group has sent me, I don't know how many, and it's been a real opportunity for us to show, this is the difference between kind of how credit unions do business and, how traditional players, the big banks, do business, and how we treat, our customers.
I think that, when I look at the industry and I look at the potential for impact right now, I think that's so profound. You also had conversations, or having conversations, I think, with congressional members and political people. Will you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have a really good relationship with Maxine Waters and her staff. For many years now, we've got quite a few members in her district. And when the CARES Act came out, and I know they put it together quickly, and I know, they were kind of rushing to get something out, but there were obviously lots of gaps in there that didn't really address all of the issues that we were seeing and all of the issues that our members were seeing. And so, we kind of listed those out, thought through them for them, reached out and said, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing, but, here's some things that are preventing us from providing, all the relief that we'd like to from our, to our members. Can you help us with this? And they jumped on it. So it's been, normally I don't expect to have that much influence. They listen to us, they appreciate it, they say they support us, but things go kind of glacially from there. Through this, it's been great, because I think they, to a large extent, they really do trust our motives, right? And they think our motives are pure, and they think they're proper, and that, we're not in it to benefit ourselves. We're trying to help our members in our communities, and they see us as part of the solution. And in times like this, they look to us to be part of the solution, and there's more trust in our advice than what they might get from a profit motivated entity, right?
Well, and I look at it from the standpoint that we can do all the advertising in the world, but the word of mouth, the reality of which you responded to operationally was key. I think the other area that I was interested in was the relationship with our Chairman Hood, and the fact that he's been out in the market, testifying before Congress. And I know you've had conversations with him as well. So it wasn't something we planned to talk about, but I was fascinated about the idea that that the voice that you have has expanded in a natural way. It hasn't been something that you seeked out. It's really come from the impact that you're having. Any comments there?
Again, very fortunate to have a board associate that had a prior relationship with Chairman Hood. They were both White House fellows together and have kept that relationship going. And so when he came on to work with our board, he made those introductions as soon as Chairman Hood, was appointed chairman. And we started a dialogue, and he's reached out to us on several occasions to kind of let us know, hey, I'm working on this. What do you guys think? Would you be willing to support this? And in this case, I kind of reached out to him and said, hey, I'm wondering where the NCUA is on a couple of issues. If you'd have time, I'd love to kind of cover them with you. And he said, sure, let's take a call. And I was pleasantly pleased to hear that, most of the things that were concerns for us, they were already having conversations with Treasury and then internally on the NCUA board. And, he's been, fairly easy to work with, right? As a regulator. So definitely, a little different than maybe it was 5-6 years ago, pre McWaters, and I appreciate his efforts and his willingness to listen and even act on our concerns. So.
Well, I think that's great. So we've talked a little bit about externally and the impact that you're having there. You also are doing quite a bit internally with your staff, and I was actually sharing with another client this week the idea of you're surveying staff in terms of get their feedback. How do we go back? And so the plan B or plan A or phase one or phase two, you guys have been working, but you've also fully integrated the staff into that. Can you tell us about some of the staff initiatives?
Well, I mean, what I've seen early on and then throughout this is, staff morale has been amazing, and it kind of, I guess it maybe takes a crisis to get everybody on this, rowing in the same direction, and everyone wants to be, again, part of that solution. And I said, well, we've always had a tradition, if we're going to do something for staff or something that impacts staff, I'd like to know how they view it, right? How they think. And so just recently here, I said, we had always kind of talked about expanding a remote worker policy that we currently have. And so what a perfect opportunity. We'll never get this opportunity again, to find out from the majority of our staff, hey, is this a viable alternative for you? So we sent that survey out, and I was not surprised, although some of the executive team was, that the overwhelming majority said this would be a fabulous idea, because I'd seen it at the first credit union I worked for 15 years ago. Everybody absolutely loves the idea of working from home until they've done it for about 90, 180 days. And then about half of them, said, hey, I really need to come back. I can't, I'm tired of staring at the same four walls. I need some adults. And, so, you stay flexible. And I think what we learned out of that is that, we can accommodate a much broader remote work policy here. We're mostly satisfied that we've been able to keep our productivity up. We've definitely increased satisfaction, job satisfaction among our employees. And when you live in the market we're in, which is Los Angeles, and the traffic issues that we have, I can certainly see that being a very big lift to quality of life and our employees' ability to kind of balance life. So, we're going to give that option. I think most will elect to work a couple of days a week from home,
Yeah.
versus full time, which is fine, and we can accommodate that. It changes some of the plans we've had. We're updating one of our administrative buildings now to a little less dedicated space and more hoteling space, but it's certainly something we can work through. Fortunately, we hadn't actually spent the money yet to do everything, and we can make those modifications. But I think it's going to be great for us.
Yeah, I think that I just want to say that it's fast forwarded initiatives that quite a few credit unions have had on their strategic plan. Virtual engagement, digitization, the whole idea of work from home, and so I've seen that happen within a short period of time. And so it'll be interesting to see how it evolves back. I want to get to something that I'm just very excited to be part of with you, and that's that in addition to all this, and having a family and balancing, and I love your virtual background of the beach. It's so calming, but I know your world is pretty chaotic. You are also giving time to your community. You're barbecuing for them.
Sure.
You're giving time to the World Council and initiatives that we know right now are tough for people to look at, but you've been donating through Credit Union for Kids. You're involved with World Council and our initiative, which I kind of want to say that you and I, came up with the idea of pay to not play before this happened, and so we can say that we're brilliant, but we're in the middle of doing that too. So tell me how you balance. How do you make that happen?
That's the giving back is really a key element and part of our culture at the credit union. I believe we owe that obligation that we have three groups we serve. We serve our members, employees, and our communities. And this is how we serve our communities. And one of the things that our employees point out in their, the engagement survey that we do annually, what they like most about the credit union, and this is probably more so than any other comment that they provide, is how we get involved in the community. And they're all they're the ones that drive it. The organizations we support, and the ones that we actually get involved with, that comes from the employees. They're the ones that say, hey, I'm working with this organization and I'd like to see if the credit union or other team members would be willing to do it. And we call it an exchange, where it's a kind of a digital marketplace where employees can go in and see all the different opportunities that we've got to engage with local nonprofits, and they can just sign up there and they're in. A lot of events, a lot of fundraisers. We encourage employees, if they'd like to support an organization and raise funds, go for it, and Kinecta will match whatever you raise, and that's been pretty popular.
Wow.
And it's the the key is to get your employees engaged, and I said right out of the gate that I don't just want us to be cutting checks. If we're going to give back, what we need to give is our time, our talent, and our treasure. And they've embraced that, and I think it's I'm sure it's generated some goodwill. We didn't initially get into it for that reason, and as a result, we didn't do a lot of promoting of kind of what we've done. We decided several years ago that that really didn't make sense, and even though we're not doing it for recognition, there's no harm in letting folks know. So we've gotten pretty active, on social media and with local media, and we actually we have somebody that runs that for us now full time.
Wow.
And we found that the more we do and the more we reach out, the more likely we are to get the attention. And even at times when it's a slow news day, they reach out to us and say, "Hey, are you doing anything?" I'm like, "Oh,
Well,
okay,
and when you talk about community, your community is your local community, and it's also your industry community,
sure,
because I know you're heavily involved in that, and it's the global community. And when your organization was first introduced to some of the work we were doing with World Council, your team internally created their own Amelia Earhart group to
yeah,
represent your sponsor and also to participate on a global basis.
yeah,
So I just wanted to say to you that there's an idea that to me became something that they owned. They were proud
yeah,
to host meetings, and so that has been fabulous. So we're going to be talking later today about the pay to not play. And I was actively, because we have a call today, I don't know
yeah,
about you, but it became like, oh my God, that's my priority tomorrow. Let me get all that done tonight. So we're going to be getting foursomes, and we're going to get people to donate them, and then
yeah,
you'll be able to play together. When I was doing my research on Cascada, which is here in Boulder City, it used to be MGM's private course, and they opened it up for the public, and it's just now opening again. But I was looking at, they have the caddies, they have, this
sure,
whole
yeah.
experience, right? And all of a sudden I go, hey, might turn out really fun. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, yeah, we just, like you said, we were, after the fact, brilliant in setting up an event that actually lends itself to being virtual. And I think it'll be, successful. We actually have here in Southern California, as you know, a big annual event where all of the credit unions get together and raise money for children's hospitals at a wine auction. And as it just so happened, all of this really started to hit the fan, the weekends that we had that scheduled.
Wow.
And so there weren't mandatory lockdowns yet, but everybody was essentially canceling travel, getting ready for it. And so over, a couple of days, we moved that to a virtual event. And, testament to the credit unions, most showed up virtually, and we raised over $1 million. So
Wow. Wow.
it can be done.
It can be done, dude. We're
Yeah.
going to have some fun with it.
Yeah.
So when we take a look at going forward, what are there any groups that you think have been pushed back underground? Are there any conversations? We don't have our conferences anymore. We're virtual.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we used to be able to, if you will, have those side conversations. Let's talk about this issue. What are you missing there, or what advice would you give?
Well, you pretty much nailed it. So, the virtual it's a great tool, but at least for me, it's a very marginal substitution for getting together with folks. And, I miss it. I don't like to travel, all the time. That gets old as well, but I think there's a balance there. And, personally, I'm ready to go somewhere. All right. I want to change the scene. I'm tired of being in the bubble. I'd like to go somewhere. I'd like to see some folks. I'd like to, get reacquainted with some, and have those casual conversations with no set agenda, where quite honestly, that's where a lot of ideas and collaboration comes from. It doesn't necessarily, you can't always force it. And being in casual setting, low stress environment, free conversation, with people you're comfortable with and trust. And that's kind of how those things, maybe they're harebrained, but just something you've been thinking about, you throw it out there, and, and others run with it. And I think a lot of kind of the ideas and innovations that have come about in the credit union industry have kind of started there. They've been birthed, on the proverbial, back of the cocktail napkin. And
I love it. Yeah. And it's funny because I think of it, people will say to me, these conversations that we have, that's great, Sue, but what comes of it? And I think thought leadership, frankly, comes from those casual conversations, the napkin, the what if we did this, and then we all think about it and then get back together and you say, how do we activate? And you're involved in, boards, you're involved in CUSOs, you're involved in startups. You're looking at, I think, around the industry, all the collaboration that you're doing.
Yeah.
So for me, that's one of the big pieces. And I just think that that's, an area that'll be interesting. So if you had some advice to give to your colleagues or to give to me, I'd welcome it. This is your chance.
Yeah. My chance, huh? So, I won't say that this has always been my mindset. It used to be, and my prior credit union was a big credit union, and the mindset that kind of I had was that I don't think that the traditional credit union solutions, the CUSOs and the things that have been developed within the industry, they're just not sophisticated enough to serve our needs, right? That thinking has evolved for me over time to, these large, sophisticated, core system providers, their interests and our interests are not aligned, right?
Yeah.
They are looking to extract maximum value for the investments they've already made and make just enough investment in innovation to keep you on a hook. And the reason they make it so difficult to switch, it's just like a telephone, where it used to be the cell phone providers. If they got to make you sign a contract in order to keep you, chances are, you might find that the solution and the service aren't quite there. And now I like credit union owned solutions, where we have a seat at the table and where we have, a voice. Now, granted, you can't force the members to or your staff to accept, limitations that give you, that make you less competitive. But what I see, at least around a lot of the credit union providers or the CUSO providers, is they're getting or are as good or better in many cases. If I can find one, even if it's a push, I'd much rather have credit unions involved and have a seat at the table than have to rely on Fiserv or one of these companies to keep me up to speed with what our members need and demand from a service or technology perspective. And so far that's really worked out for us, and that's going to be our kind of our mantra, going forward. And honestly, where there's not a credit union provider, that's when we start looking at, all right, should we build one? Are there other credit unions that have the same problem that we do? Can we find them? Can we work together? And a lot of times, there are folks out there, and they might be willing to take a shot.
Well, I think that's a fabulous, because I hear the range on that as well. I hear as you get bigger, you have other needs and so on. So I love that. That also, and I know we were finishing up, but it led me to think about you and your commitment to FinTech and your commitment to what we would see as startups outside the industry. But I know that you're engaged in some of those startups as well. So an incubation and then a leadership. And I don't know if a fast follower? Do you see yourself as on the leading edge? But you're definitely pushing the envelope in a few areas. So that'll be good for the industry down the road.
Yeah, probably one of our bigger investments here recently is we put in money to get Constellation Digital Partners going. And again, this came out of, it's one of those things where here's something that we think we need or are going to need, and there isn't a solution. Not only is there not a tradition, there's not a credit union solution, there's no traditional provider that's interested in doing it. And that was basically, creating a way for us to work with these fintechs and lower the risk in doing so. The issue that we have today is if we find a fintech we want to work with, we've got to get them integrated into core systems, and that's a nightmare. It's a huge drain. And then at the end of the day, you might get working with this fintech, and it's great and it's brilliant and your members love it. Well, this is a startup. They may not be around. In fact, most of them, don't actually survive. And so if once you've introduced it, you run the risk of now you've given your members something they love and expect, and you can no longer provide it.
And I think that the validity on that one, Keith, is that you and I both see the industry evolve, and the legacy leaders that were able to start some of the early credit union CUSOs and where they became and, where they are today and continuing to evolve. But we've looked and we've had conversations about the fact, where are those leaders today, right? That took the risks, that came together, that it pushed the industry down a path that allowed relevance. So I just commend you for that, because I think that thought leadership, even though that sounds like we're just throwing a phrase around, the idea of having a thought and saying, now, how do I make it happen? It takes the leaders that are willing to take those risks. And so it's a balanced risk. I know that your approach is a balance, but I also think that we have to have those folks out there. So, I commend you on that.
And honestly, I see them, right?
Yeah.
I see them, and I see them in the next level of folks in our organizations and others. And it's just a matter of keeping them engaged and giving them a chance, because we're all getting a little grayer. I, for one, am not going to work till I'm 70. So, there's got to be a point where they take over and keep it going, and it's not going to get any easier, and things aren't going to move any slower. So, I'm optimistic.
Yeah, and I think that this the COVID world is going to accelerate some of that. I mean, we do have to look and listen and be part of it. So, well, any final thoughts? I know I've taken up your time this morning, and I sure appreciate it. Anything you'd like to say to the group or to the people that will be listening?
I think we said it all, other than the fact that, I'm ready to get past this and, get back to normal, even if that's a new normal, as long as it means I can go play golf whenever I want, or get out of the house, or I have free range of motion. I'm ready.
All right.
Over-ready.
Well, listen, I guess I'll be seeing you in Zoom meetings later today. So have a great day, and thank you very much for spending your time with us.
You got it.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.